Hey folks, welcome back to SC Haulers. I am Saxawine, and today I'm going to give you my full rundown on how I solo mine Quantanium in Star Citizen without blowing up or wasting hours. We'll go over the tools I use, mining loadouts, laser strategy, and how to get your haul to the refinery efficiently. So, let's get into this haul. Before we talk lasers, let's talk tools. First up, regolith.rocks. I use this to find where the best Quantanium and high value resources are. It's all player driven, so some scans may be outdated, but for Quantanium, Stellaron, and Ricite, your staple materials like bore, silicone, titanium, it's pretty spot on. Regolith has a lot of good tools, like just in general, it'll keep track of your refinery orders. You can calculate how much Quantanium you'll get out of a rock. You can compare this page, the ore types, with the rock types and the rock locations to figure out what location really is the best. Regolith is such a great tool. I recommend it to everybody. The only downside is, like I said, it is player driven, so not everything is going to be up to date. The next tool I like to use is a site that I found on Google, of all places, and this is SC Mining Mom, and she has a lot of good information just in one spot in regards to the page I use the most is the ship upgrades page, and it lists all of the laser heads you have, all the gadgets, all the modules, and even has a little button right there that shows you where to buy them. Now, the downside of this is I don't think Mining Mom is updated since 4.0 came out. You can't see the Pitman laser on the Golem. You can't see any locations in Pyro to purchase any of this stuff at. So I don't think she's updated it. I don't know if she will update it, but we will probably make our own list just because this is outdated. And the last thing I want to do is search all corners of the internet to try and find where to buy all this stuff and anything new that happens to come into play. Next is UEX, and you all know what UEX is for. It's for buying and selling commodities. That's what I use if I'm not mining Quantanium. So if I'm out solo mining, I need to talk about gadgets because gadgets are going to be the best thing in your life. What I use the most, the two common I use, are Sabir and the Optimax. Now the Sabir is going to be very useful when you're trying to crack larger rocks and they have a very high resistance. That 70% reduction in resistance is going to be key for cracking larger rocks. Now, if I have a smaller rock like this one, which is, it's like 20k in mass and has like 40% resistance. I forget the stats on it, but this one, the Optimax is clutch because it has that 60% cluster modifier, which means you're going to get more Quantanium in one rock and not have so many splits. So if I have a larger rock that has 100 SCU of Quantanium, which that's a really large rock. I don't think I've seen one of those before, but theoretically, if it did, a Optimax gadget would cluster all that Quantanium into fewer rocks, which would allow you to filter through what rocks you do want to pick up and which ones you don't. Basically, you want to try to get as close to 100% Quantanium in your bags as you can, and the Optimax will help you do that. When you're solo mining, power is king. On my mole, I run a Helix 2 with a Riger C3 and 2 surge modules. Sometimes I'll swap out a surge module with a Stampede, but primarily I use 2 surge modules. You could go just 3 surge modules if you're feeling frosty, but I don't recommend it because it'll increase that instability so much. Obviously that only matters if you activate the modules, but having a Riger C3 on there passively gives you more power, and so that's why I would recommend at least having one of those on there. And I really only use the Helix 2 when I'm cracking rocks that are 40 to 60,000 K in mass. And it depends on the resistance of the rock. Obviously a 60K mass rock with 60% resistance, I'm probably not going to crack even if I throw a Sabir on there. And going into more power, my secondary laser is a Hofstede with a Riger C3 and a surge module. That's the one I'm using currently. I like using the Hofstede when I'm solo mining because it increases the optimal window and lowers resistances by 30%. So it's really nice to use when you're cracking like this rock, which was 20k. I activated my surge module and bam, I was ready to go. So I didn't have to hop on the Helix. I got an increased window. I no longer have to struggle with that rock on a Helix 2. The hop speed worked perfectly fine. So for my third laser, I like to reference it as my support laser. It's when I'm solo mining, it's there to get really small rocks that maybe my Hofstede and my Helix have way too much power for. But I am in a large org, and so a lot of the times I do find another 2-3 people on my mole. So I will switch between a Hofstede 2 and a Impact 2. I also keep a Klein on board as well, and that's just dependent on the rock. Usually I'll use a Klein when I'm solo mining, and the reason I use the Klein is because it has a minus 45% resistance, so that way I can throw... I have seen small rocks where they have 80% resistance, and so throwing an Optimax on there or a Sabir on there on top of having the Klein on there can reduce that resistance a lot for small rocks. It will increase the instability a lot, but you will be able to knock down that resistance dramatically. I like the Impact 2 because it has the largest extraction rate, which it just extracts faster than everyone else. It also can get slightly larger rocks than maybe your Hofstede. The Hofstede has the lowest extraction power rate. And I like the Hofstede as my third support laser because of the minus 10 resistance. Now, I don't swap these out all the time. I in fact rarely use this third support laser when I'm solo mining. It is purely there as a support laser just in case I need it for small rocks or if I have multiple people on my mole. More often than not, I am using the Impact 2 when I am solo mining, and I have the modules, the Focus 3, the Riger C3, and the Torrent 3 module. If I am running a Hofstede, then I will have the Riger C3 and the Focus 3 module. And probably the rarest head that I use is the Klein, but I do use it sometimes. And I'll just throw a Riger C3 on there. The Klein 2 can only have one module on it. So that is probably the main reason that I don't use the Klein 2 very often. And again, I don't swap these out very often, so my main tertiary laser is going to be the Impact 2. Now, if I do have multiple people in my mole with me, my utility laser, my third laser, it's going to have two modules on it. It's going to have the Torrent module and it's going to have the Focus 3 module. Now, I like these because the Focus 3 module increases the optimal window size by 40% and gives you a little bit more mining laser power. The Torrent 3 gives you an optimal charge rate of plus 40%, but it also reduces the window size by 1%, which with the Focus 3 on there, and if you have somebody in your Hofstede, then that optimal window size should get quite larger. If you're using a Sabir gadget on there too, it's going to be gigantic. So it's all dependent on what you have going on and what you need specifically, but more often than not, I have either super experienced miners with me that want to get through that rock really quickly, or I have rookies with me that don't know what they're doing, and an optimal window size is going to be ideal. That Torrent module is going to get through that optimization window very, very quickly, and that's where my experienced guys appreciate that third laser or my utility laser. Last thing I'm going to talk about in regards to lasers or mining heads or whatever, the truth is you don't need to use the Helix 2. You don't always need to be in the Helix 2. And I say this because I have met so many people that just started mining, and you won't believe how many people I've seen set up their moles with 3 Helix lasers. I've seen 3 Helix lasers, I've seen 2, I've seen setups where it's just 3 Helix lasers with 3 Riger C3s on all of them, and they're still not able to crack rocks. Oh my gosh. Seeing that frustrates me so much. I don't have a lot of mining videos, so if you are inexperienced and you want to go out solo mining, I recommend go watch Red Monster SC. He has some great tutorials on mining. He's like the godfather of mining. If you want to crack big rocks, go watch El Guapo. He's got loadout guides, location guides, like all sorts of stuff. So we're moving on to refineries, and the first thing I have to say is I made an error and I need to correct it. And I need to correct myself because Foxy Loxy came out with a video of our mining operation a few weeks ago, and I spouted out some information that was kind of incorrect. So you can see the current capacity on the left hand side. I'm at crew L1. It's 87,387%. What's supposed to happen in the future is as that number goes up, it's supposed to take more time and cost more money to have your refinery orders done. But as you can see, I am now at Magnus Gateway, and you're going to see that the refinery order, even though the current capacity is at 64,000%, which is what, 24,000% less, it still costs the same amount of money. It still has the same amount of time using the same refinery method. Now, the biggest difference between Crew L1 and Magnus Gateway is the 3% yield bonus. And you can see Magnus Gateway has a 3% yield bonus and Crew L1 does not. There are multiple stations that have this 3% bonus. Magnus Gateway just happens to be the lowest current capacity. The only benefit you have of going to Magnus Gateway is you get a little bit more yield out of Magnus Gateway. That being said, it does not matter if you go to Crew L1 or if you go to Magnus Gateway, because that yield rounds up. So let me clip back to Crew L1 real quick. So if you look right here, you can see in the yield category that it says 17.24. And if we go back to Magnus Gateway, it will say 17.74. And so the key point out of this and why I say it doesn't matter what refinery you go to is because it rounds up. So 17.24 or 17.74 is going up to 18 regardless. I would recommend if you have like 60, 70 SCU of Quantanium or whatever you want to mine on your ship, go to a refinery that has that yield bonus, but otherwise don't even bother. Just go to the closest station. And even contradicting my previous statement, you could just go to the closest station, take 4 bags off and throw them in the freight elevator, and you have a smaller order already. So the yield bonus is then regardless again. That's it though. Quantanium is risky, but with the right tools, setup, and patience, Quantanium is one of the most profitable resources in the game. If this helped you out, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you want to know whenever I drop a video. I'm Sax of Wine, this is SC Haulers, and we'll see you at the next haul.